Right now on Tech Radio, AI and weapons of mass destruction.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. You're welcome to episode 1055, looking at the 7 biggest stories of the week, including things you can't do with AI in the EU. We discover Apple porn and Google's change of heart on AI in weapons of war. Plus, our guest Fiona Boyle from Munster Technological University will be chatting about building a talent pipeline in engineering.
From techcentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Niall, let's lead off with Google. Because I remember Google when they started, it was like kind of fight the good fight and we'll always be blah, blah, blah and all that kind of, and then they've completely changed. They're out now commercial. They don't give a damn anymore from what I can see. And they will rob you blind.
Well, I mean, you remember their original motto was don't be evil.
That's it.
Now we have moved to a stage of you can be a bit evil if it's paying the bills.
You're so much nicer than me. That's what I was saying. But they have made quite a big change to their ethos, if you like. And considering what's going on in the world, I think this is quite important. What have they done?
Well, they've done a couple of things that we'll talk about today. But what's interesting isn't so much that they're doing them, so much as they've come out and admitted they're doing them, right? So when we're talking about AI, Google's whole thing was, look, we're working on AI, but we're doing it safely, we're doing it ethically. We don't want our products used in weapons of war. That's one of the ground rules. You know, we're doing all this work, but we're doing it for the betterment of humanity. Now, during the week, Google came out, and it's not quite that they said, by the way, we are now using our research to develop weapons of war. It's just they've started emitting little bits that were built into its mission statement when it came to AI. So just for example, in the last week, they had a section in their ethical guidelines for AI where, and this is part of the sentence, they will not be working on technologies that cause or are likely to cause overall harm. Just that little sentence fragment. And that's gone now, right? So tiny little thing, big important, right? So the head of Google's AI, that's Demis Hassabis, came out and he said in a blog post, look, the reason why we've done this is because the world is changing. AI is changing. Brackets, everybody else is probably doing this anyway. And that they will step forward and use their work to protect national security, inverted commas. Now, to which you would have to ask, whose nation?
That's exactly what was going through my mind.
I mean, US national security needs would be, at the risk of sounding a little bit mischievous.
Different from other people's.
Different from other people's. That's the best way to put it. So we imagine he's talking about US national security, and we know that the Trump administration is quite big on saying certain things are part of national security that maybe wouldn't have been said in the past. I won't go into too much detail on that, but national security can take on a very, very broad meaning, especially when there are so many technologies that can be applied to either the military or law enforcement. So to me, this actually looks like carte blanche for Google, Alphabet, to do whatever the hell they want to do with AI. Now, what's your take on it?
Yes. And I think they were probably doing whatever they wanted to do with AI anyway, and they're just continuing doing that. And I think the best definition of national security when it comes to Google is I think they're looking at the nation of Google.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they'd be particularly, I mean, the US, I suppose, is important because they came from the US. but they are a global entity at this stage. They operate everywhere. So I think, kind of maybe national security might be just in their own interest, really. But anyway, we'll see. But speaking of national security, I think we've got something similar going on with AI, if you like, right, kind of in the EU. Because you know that last year, was it in the summer, August, I think?
Yeah, last August, the AI Act was passed.
AI Act came out. Okay, so now this week they have issued some guidelines of the kind of things that you can and cannot do, or rather cannot do, under the AI Act. Now, they're not actually rules just yet, but they're guidelines, okay?
Well, the AI Act, it's important to stress, is that it's not based on specific things.
No.
It's based on risk, which is a very amorphous concept that you can change. And there's different tiers of risk, right? So, and I think things like national security, there is, I don't want to call it a loophole, but there is a, provision there, because I remember France and Germany kicking up stink about it during the negotiating stages. So we're now into the stage where countries are starting to transpose the AI Act into law. So with that in mind, continue your point, please.
With that in mind, is they are starting to define now what they consider are things that you can and cannot do. And one of the interesting things, maybe it's not quite national security, but social welfare is a key part of our nation and every nation in Europe and in the States and stuff like that, right? The AI Act guidelines say that social welfare, or people who look after social welfare, cannot use AI to evaluate people as unsuitable or unacceptable, or suitable or acceptable.
Computer says no.
Computer says no, which I just kind of was interesting. It's like, would social welfare actually make that determination on its own? Another one of the guidelines is that you cannot use AI to assess a person's risk of committing a criminal offence. Now, does this remind you of a certain Tom Cruise movie?
It certainly does.
Yeah.
It has a bang off a certain film that we used to talk about every week.
Yeah, Minority Report.
Yeah.
Where basically you could get arrested for a crime that you could commit in 6 months' time. And essentially, I mean, that's fine. That's a movie and it's fantasy and it's science fiction writing. This is 2025 and it's reality. And this is an actual piece of legislation where they are issuing a real guideline saying that you cannot use AI to assess a person's risk of committing a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. And another thing I think is interesting, and this is kind of more day-to-day kind of stuff, is that you can't allow AI in chatbots to use subliminal messaging to manipulate persons into making harmful financial decisions. Okay,
well, there's two parts to that. Because as we know, when we're dealing with websites, there's what's called dark patterns. And basically, websites are architected to make sure that they come up with a certain, you land on it and you will, through fair means or slightly dodgy, come up with a course of actions that the website wants you to complete, which will, I imagine, transform into a sale.
And before we had websites, we had a thing called sales. All right, which is pretty much the same thing. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, so that's sort of part of it. Making sure that you maybe phrase something, or that a chatbot phrases something in a way that certainly sounds data-driven and plausible and whatnot. So that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, we also have this balance between, okay, here's what's best for you versus here's a choice you actually make for yourself. And might not be the best choice, but you have the right to actually make that choice instead of being funneled in one direction.
But and that's what sales is all about, okay? And I suppose, that's life. I think it's interesting that they brought this up with AI specifically, okay? Because it's not so much that AI will give you that, brilliant sales pitch or whatever, and you get that fear of missing out, or they're also concerned about it being used in gambling apps and stuff like that as well. But the thing is that AI can build a profile on every single person who sees an ad or visits a website. And AI could very well know very specific personal things, or through the conversation on the chatbot, it can learn things about you, and then blah, blah. So essentially, the sales pitch could be, well, if you don't go for that extra level of such and such, well, then you're not going to get the holiday in Spain that you want.
Mm. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that is a completely different level of sales, where you're kind of going, oh man, you know? I just think it's interesting that the people behind the laws across the union are thinking that way.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
And it's great. It shows they've got their head screwed on. I mean, agentic AI is 25's big development.
Oh, yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. And actually, it's coming to Amazon, because in a related story, they're going to relaunch later this month. I think they're going to redo Alexa, which apparently hasn't had much of a thing in the last 10 years, really. It's just been designed to play music or play a radio station or order things or whatever. But they're actually going to introduce asking simple questions. And this year, they're thinking of introducing AI into Alexa so that she will remember things about you, and she can act as an agent on your behalf. So if you say things like, whatever, blah, 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 order me a McDonald's, she will know. And here's me referring to it as a she, but anyways, she will know that your preferred burger is blah, 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 blah. Maybe you don't like gherkins in it or something like that, and will adjust the order accordingly.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it will help her to interact more sensibly. Hopefully, you can have more of a conversation with her instead of having to say the keyword every time you look at her. And I'm amused by a quote from Dave Limp, who was Amazon's chief of devices. He said this 10 years ago. Okay, 10 years ago, he said, someday in the future, Alexa could answer everything you ask. Now, I'm still having trouble getting her to play a radio station. All right. And it's not just me. I see other people in my family, all right, who are literally shouting at the damn thing because it doesn't play RT lyric or whatever happens that they want to hear.
Yeah.
You know, there's a station I would like to hear, and it's an Irish language radio station, and it's called Radio Rero, and it just doesn't understand it.
Wow.
Whereas it does understand radio in a Gaeltacht. I don't get it. All right, but even turning lights on and off, we have whatever. It has to be in a specific group. So if I'm in the room and I say blah blah blah, turn the lights off, it'll go, in which room do you want the lights turned off? In the damn room I'm in. This is basic stuff. So when people talk about smart speakers, I just raise my eyes to heaven. So I'm hoping that when they do introduce AI into Alexa, that it will improve the communication. But here's the thing for you, Niall. Remember when Alexa speakers came along first and we were all thinking, oh no, but they're listening to us.
Yeah.
And then I was saying, well, they're listening to us on the phones anyway. Can you imagine it listening to you and also having AI? Little tin hat thing there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else going on this week? I had an interesting email, just a small point, from Perplexity, which I use quite a bit. All right. And now they're kind of using a DeepSeek model. And the email was a Tuesday, and it was about DeepSeek is now used by Perplexity. But I thought it was interesting. They specifically said, and I quote, the model is hosted on servers based in the US and Europe, meaning that your data is not shared with the model provider or with China.
Very specific.
That's very specific and very official, isn't it?
It is.
That was
still
interesting.
Half wrong though. I mean, I wouldn't want my data being shared in the States. Keep me in the EU, thank you very much.
I just don't want my data shared anyways. Other stories this week. Google and DEI. Oh,
yeah, back to those guys.
Oh, yeah. Boys.
Yeah, they're having a bad week in the court of public opinion. Okay. As we all know, Facebook has abandoned its diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives. So has Amazon. And this week, Google came out and said, yeah, guess what? We're stepping away from DEI. And there's a couple of things in the background. But we'll start with the statement that they issued, which said that their DEI targets were aspirational. It's like, yeah, we didn't think we'd actually meet them, but we were hoping we would. And you know what? It hasn't happened, so we're just going to scrap it. Our program was ultimately ineffective. So, look, we're still committed to it in principle, but we're just not going to be pursuing it as vigorously as we once thought. So DEI is out. And we know why. We know why. I mean, Sundar Pichai was on that. He was sitting in the second row in front of the rest of the GOP.
I was about to say, in all fairness, with everybody else.
Well, with all the people who matter to Mr. Trump, yes. he was sitting right behind him. So this is clearly another sop to the Trump administration. Currying favor, kissing the ring, bending over, depending on how lewd you want to be about it. But also, kind of a group effect as well. I mean, if your peers are kind of stepping away and going, do you know what, it's not for us. This does mean, though, that Apple and Microsoft are looking increasingly, I don't want to say vulnerable, but I mean, they're the last two standing when it comes to high profile DEI efforts. Apple quite vociferously saying, look, and pushing back against their shareholders, saying, no, we believe in DEI. We want to give people the best chance they can to get up the corporate ladder, or even to join the corporate ladder, as a lot of people are, born without the privilege of being able to go to an Ivy League college, etc., etc. Microsoft a little bit quieter on it, but all the same, they are hanging on to their DEI program. So I don't know, Dusty, another example of the dark times in which we live.
Another example of the dark times in which we live, but I fully believe that they will flip back again in 4 years' time.
Or 2 years' time,
or
depending
2 years.
on what happens in midterms.
Well, there we go. We shall wait and see. Speaking of American politics, let's get into our favourite American politician, Mr. Elon Musk.
Yeah.
You pointed out that his Twitter bio, excusez-moi, his X bio now says, describes himself as what?
White House tech support. I mean, really. He was, what, Chief Twit?
Is that what we call him, or did he call himself Chief Twit?
That.
Oh, did he? Right,
that.
Okay. Very, very apt.
So now White House tech support, just showing that, this whole Doge nonsense, this imaginary government department that apparently has access to all the IT infrastructure behind the state. During the week, it came out that 6 young men aged under the age of 25 was basically Doge. That's it. Musk had enlisted 6 software engineers to go in and go into the US, not the Treasury, but anyway, the federal payments system is under the control of Doge at the moment. So we'll see what happens with it. It's a fascinating situation. Like, Musk has basically been going wherever he wants, doing whatever he wants to the US government. Is this part of Trump's revenge tour that we all knew was going to happen? Yeah, pretty much. Musk is a change agent. He's not making many friends, but he's doing exactly what he said he would and what we all expected him to do. Now, maybe in not so, there's an awful lot of shock and awe involved with Trump 2.0. Everything has been shock and awe. Everything. There's so many executive orders flying around. There's so many things trying to go through the courts. There's the he hasn't even got his cabinet fully passed yet. He lost one attorney general. He's got a second one just confirmed. So it's total chaos as was expected, and the opposition don't know The Democrats don't know how to pick a target. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of US politics, but we've got there is a fairly ineffectual opposition at the moment, just because there's so many things, so many fires to put out, so many points to counter.
But that in itself is policy. It's just it throws so much at people that they spend more time putting out fires than watching what you're actually doing.
Well, yep, there's a big chunk of it. So anyway, over the last weekend, you remember we had a very short and sweet standoff between the US, Canada and Mexico over tariffs. That Trump on the Friday last, just as we had sort of dropped, if you will, announced tariffs of, I think it was 25% on goods from Canada and Mexico. At which point Canada Justin Trudeau delivered a very, very good speech defending Canada's interests. Fairly shortly after that, the President Trump came out and said, do you know those tariffs? Well, I had some very good conversations with, Canada and Mexico, and I'm pretty happy with what we've got out of them. Now, what he got out of them was a restatement of commitments that were already made during the Biden administration, and now he gets to call them his own. He's happy with that. This is stuff they were doing anyway about border security. Again, I won't go down the rabbit hole, but it was a very short and sweet standoff over tariffs. However, during the week, during this week, there was a similar standoff in Canada over a Starlink contract that had been struck with Ottawa. And the idea was that 15,000 people were going to benefit from this contract that was worth absolutely millions.
Yeah.
I'll just get the Reuters figure on this because
I can't remember. I think it might have been worth billions, actually. If
it was 68 million US dollars.
Oh, there you
so
go. All right. Yeah.
100 million Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
It was announced that, okay, we're pulling the deal, doing the very smart thing. Just go to, because we know Mr. Musk is the president, just go straight to his wallet. It'll make him sit up and take notice. So they said, right, we're cancelling the deal. Musk posted on X, oh, well, yeah, because $100 million ain't nothing to the man, or rather $70 million ain't nothing to him. And of course, trade war over. We've decided, okay, yeah, deal is back on. And that's it. Well, here's the interesting thing, though. Please spare a thought for the sales guy who took probably months negotiating that deal, whose retirement was based on a commission on a sale of nearly $70 million. I mean, if you're on a 10% commission, you are set for life. That is it. You can retire a happy man nice and early. And there was your boss going, doesn't bother me.
Yeah, anyways. Listen, elsewhere, away from Starlink, Tesla sales are down, particularly in Europe.
Yeah, Tesla sales are really suffering in Europe. I suppose because we're seeing what's going on, and we're not dealing with any of this Doge stuff. We're not interested in Musk supporting far-right politicians in Europe. And people are voting with their wallets, which is the best thing to do. Oh,
you really think that?
Absolutely.
Do you? Okay.
I mean, look, let's look at the stats here. This is in January alone. Okay. So in the UK, Tesla sales are down 12%. In France, I'll go to Germany next. In Germany, they were down 41%.
Whoa!
And in France, they're down 63%.
What?
And this is in the face of the market for EVs, which is actually expanding. The market, I think, is up 7% last year in total. So, things are doing pretty well. Even the EV market in Ireland is on the way back up after successive quarters of poor registrations. So registrations are up in Ireland even. So it's not a good time to be owning a Tesla. And I love this. People online have started referring to Teslas as swastikas.
As opposed to swastika.
Yeah, I love it. It's brilliant. Yeah, and you know, people have done parody Tesla logos and all sorts to go with it. Yeah, I mean, would you want to part with, you know, five figures to drive something that's turned into
No, I wouldn't want to be associated with that. I don't.
No.
And nobody wants to be associated with that. And maybe it's in poor taste, or people are saying that. But however, there was another thing that you were going to mention about the Tesla Model Y review on YouTube. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, talk about poor taste. If you didn't like that, you're going to hate this.
I'm definitely not going to like this. And I'm not exactly that conservative, but go on.
Oh, well, I tell you, I won't quote from it. But if one were inclined to visit YouTube, look for a channel called Car Wow and their review of the Tesla Model Y. Don't watch the video, just read the comments.
Car Wow. Yeah. All right. And Tesla Model Y. Tesla. Is this recent?
It's pretty recent. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. If I can find it in the next 5 seconds, I'll have a quick look then. All right. So 13 days ago, new Tesla model. What have they done?
Yeah.
Okay. It's playing away in my. So let's have a look at the comments. There's 8,356 comments. Oh, sorry. I've just seen the first one. Okay. Yeah. Oh, crikey. All right. Okay. Yeah. If you're not of a sensitive disposition, then go. Car Wow is the name of the channel on YouTube. Yeah. I wouldn't read them out in the podcast. Yeah. Right. Well, let's go from that. This is how bad it is, right? We're going from that to a story about porn. which we're happy to talk about, no problem at all. All right. Apple porn is kind of, I know I'm kind of, being a bit sensationalist about this, but it is kind of interesting. In that the Digital Markets Act last year, the EU has forced Apple to allow other app stores onto its platform. Okay. One of those is called Alt Store. Okay. And it has an app called Hot Tub. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to let your own imagination brew away as to what kind of stuff you're going to find on the Hot Tub app. All right. Okay. Now, Apple have been giving out about this for ages, and they're saying the whole thing about being forced to allow other stores onto its thing, it means that people can download other apps onto its Apple platform, which they would not approve otherwise, such as this one, which is doing a whole load of porn. And now it's actually happening. They are required. Apple will do a check on apps for viruses and cyber whatever, but they can't do pretty much anything about the content. So their worst fears have been realized. Also, a thing that Apple prides itself on is, as I said, they check apps for viruses and stuff like that, but one has managed to get its way through. Mm-hmm. Into the Apple walled garden. Now, in all fairness, this is happening on Android as well. It's Kaspersky have found a thing called, they're calling it Spark Cat, okay? It's on about 250,000 downloads on various different apps at the moment. But what it does is that it asks for normal permissions. It'll be in an app that has something to do with photography or has something to do with being able to see things through your camera or whatever. It's not uncommon, all right, with apps on smartphones. What this thing does behind that is it uses optical character recognition to scan photos on your phone, specifically looking for crypto wallet phrases. So if you've said to yourself those 12 or 24 words or whatever for my crypto wallet, sure, I'll tell you what, I'll just take a photograph of them. What's the worst that could happen? That's the worst that could happen. They'll get your 12 or your 24 words, they'll stick it into their own crypto wallet, they'll get access to your account, they clean you out, bump, you're done. Wow. That's a nice cheery thought to end up the news on.
That's fantastic.
Niall, thanks for keeping us up to date.
Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland.
We often talk about the challenge of getting more young people interested in careers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. As the job market is developing, how can universities and businesses show that they are keeping up with how young people learn and what they expect in a career? Dr. Fiona Boyle is Director of Ready and Head of Department STEM at MTU's Kerry campus. During the week, she had a chat with Niall Kitson about the challenge of getting young people interested in an engineering career and the role of industry partners in supporting emerging talent.
Fiona, it's a recurrent debate and problem within the IT sector that there just aren't enough candidates out there to fill the amount of jobs that are in the marketplace. Is this a similar problem in the engineering sector? And if so, how does one go about rectifying that issue?
Yeah, it is definitely, it's a similar scenario we're seeing in the engineering side of things. And I suppose I'm over an initiative at MTU Kerry campus called Ready. Now, Ready is a project that was funded by the Higher Education Authority and the Human Capital Initiative Pillar 3 programme. And really that programme is all about delivering agility and innovation in education and to meet the skills needs of enterprise. And from our perspective, we were looking at it from the engineering talent pipeline and also from the manufacturing sector in Ireland. So when we came up with the concept of Ready back in, it was nearly 2019, 2020, we had a founding group of companies with us, 8 manufacturing organisations from around Ireland. And that was a key issue that they were having was, filling their talent pipeline with engineering graduates. And I suppose what we did was we started, I suppose, at the ground and we said, right, well, how do we be agile? How do we be innovative? How do we do something different? How do we rethink or reimagine the way that we're designing and developing engineering education? So we looked internationally, we looked at the MITs, we looked at the Stanfords, we looked at, the leading world universities in the engineering space. And we used that as our baseline. We looked to see, right, well, what are other people doing? And then we got our industry partners together with us and we said, right, well, if we look internationally, but we have to use that best practice and bring it back to the regional context and the national context here in Ireland. And one of the first outputs of the Ready project was engineering education framework. So it was, a core set of guiding principles that we would validate engineering programs around, but also not to stop there to look and say, well, okay, we can do this for engineering education, but can we scale this framework to other disciplines as well? So when I say a framework, okay, it's very highfalutin, but really what it means is, it's based on best class internationally and nationally. It's co-created with enterprise in the Southwest region and nationally. It has significant elements of work-based placement because that was one thing as well that our industry partners were saying in terms of their talent pipeline. Graduate engineers, they were missing certain skill sets. So we had this concept at the very outset of a well-rounded engineer. So an engineer of the future, an engineer that had the technical skills, but also had the transversal skills. And I don't like using soft skills. It means that it's easy. People skills. So it was those three things that were really important to us. So we wanted to make sure this framework gave us, helped us to deliver that for the manufacturing companies. And part of that was having a significant work-based placement built into the framework. So for us, that is 2 years on campus in MTU and Kerry, but then 2 years on a paid work placement with one of our partner companies. Another part of the framework is emerging tech. So we build in emerging technology from year 1 all the way through to year 4. We might talk about that a little bit later, the integration of virtual reality, augmented reality. We have project-centric learning. So our student engineers, when they come into us in year 1, they are learning in teams and on projects from day 1. We have a lot of student-led curricular activities and extracurricular activities to help students hone those transversal skills, their people skills, their soft skills. And we have a huge arm around education, public engagement or outreach activity. And then we also have a lot of mentorship and support frameworks as well that we've built in from the outset for our student engineers. And we have a concept of engineers in residence as well. So these are engineers that help inform the curriculum. They are our conduit between academia and industry as well. So these are folks that have worked in industry and then they help bring that information back into the university. So I suppose, through that entire consultation process to the whole inception of Ready and what it was that we were trying to do to where we are right now, we have that framework validated. We have a Bachelor of Engineering, Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering now, and it's coming into its 4th intake of students in September 2025. It's extremely successful and we've doubled our intake across the last 3 years. So
So it sounds like the output at the end is to get people that can think like engineers as opposed to people with a very defined set of skills to be
Yeah.
applied in the workforce. Well, was that something that you had in mind?
Definitely. You can have the technical skills, but you need to be able to, I suppose those are the skills, problem solving, troubleshooting, organizational skills, being comfortable with ambiguity, not necessarily knowing the solution to a problem straight away, but how you take that problem, you break it down and you try and understand the root cause of it and try and come up with a solution to the problem. So the technical side is obviously very, very important to us, but it's all those other things and how you bring them together to help. And a lot of it is about, how you solve. It is about how you solve problems, and that was very, very important to us. And to have students comfortable from the minute they come in that that's how they're going to be learning. They're going to be learning in projects where the solution is not always going to be apparent, and they have to work together as a team to come up with the solution. And that can be a little bit daunting coming in into university in year one. The first day you're hitting project challenges and teams.
And to talk about that day one experience, of course, engineering is such a broad area of endeavor, either at academic or applied level. How did you decide which elements to pull from to give students a broad appreciation of engineering as a career? Was it a case of, okay, let's work with pharma over here because it adds the following. Let's go with smart manufacturing over here because it's an entirely different perspective. How did you pick and choose that way?
Yeah, it was challenging. We had our portfolio of industry partners. They're across, as you mentioned, many different sectors of manufacturing. So pharma, agri-tech, food, general manufacturing, electronics. So really what we want to look at, we wanted to look at it initially from the manufacturing engineering perspective. So if you take manufacturing engineering as a discipline, and then when we consulted with industry, we came up with, what are the learning, the main outcomes or that a graduate manufacturing engineer needs to be able to, or the graduate attributes. And we also looked at, okay, is it manufacturing or is there also other elements of engineering in here that we can look at? And manufacturing mechanical were universal across all of the industries that we were looking at. And they were the type of graduates that our industry partners were looking for. Now, in addition to that, what we also did is we did an exercise, and we have this actually on our website, a career pathway planning, where we look at all the different engineering roles in the manufacturing sector, and we've mapped them to the different modules that we have designed and developed with our industry partners. So it is a degree in mechanical and manufacturing engineering, but what we've also done, it's all about the line of sight to jobs, because that's something that we found is very, very important is, you can have a degree, you can have a title, but really, do students know coming in what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis when they graduate? So we have a spectrum from mechanical engineer, manufacturing engineer, and all the different roles as well, from quality, production, process, validation, project engineers, all within that. And we have mapped our program to how you can, the learning outcomes of all the modules and the program, how you can actually work and apply these in all of these different engineering roles. So it was very much starting with the manufacturing side and then going, right, well, what are the different roles that a person could work in with this degree as well? And even the titling of the degree was very important to us. So that was done very much in consultation with our industry partners across that broad range of companies and across the manufacturing sector.
That issue of having the career path in place, I mean, people think of engineering, they imagine a very linear career progression. Was that something that you thought was very important in winning students over, that, people can understand what the career of an engineer looks like, but also the gaps in the market for where the most jobs might be as well?
Definitely. I think there's a couple of things, it's very important, especially for, females in engineering, to have role models. That's amazing. And that's what we need. And we're doing huge work around that. But I think as important is the job that they're doing and what that job looks like and what it is on a day-to-day basis. And what are the, what can that job get you as well, in terms of, what's very important is, financial rewards. Engineering is a very, very well paid career, and to, be able to communicate that to, people when they're thinking about an engineering course and an engineering career. Also the different, I suppose, paths there is. As I mentioned, we've mapped our program to so many different engineering roles, but to show that diversity and that choice and that variability and where your career can go from a technical path to even a leadership path to an education path. There's so many things you can do in STEM and specifically in engineering that, that is really important to be able to communicate and show that to people thinking about studying engineering, and also for a career in engineering as well, because it's about 24% of people or females study engineering, but then only 1 in 10 end up working in engineering. So it's really about making sure you have that connection between, coming into an engineering course, coming out of it, going into the workforce and what that looks like, and to have a very clear kind of idea within reason. You can't map absolutely everything out, but to show where you can go, the pay that's there, the variety that's there, the opportunity to travel, the flexibility that these careers offer as well. So I think it's very important to be able to communicate that to people when they're thinking about a course in engineering.
Yeah, so let's take a step back chronologically there. You raised the issue of getting more girls involved in engineering. In your experience and outreach, how have you found girls to be receptive to the idea of a career in engineering? Because as we know, uptake in STEM subjects tends to be quite healthy up to junior cycle, but then for various reasons, either parental expectations or social pressure, it becomes much more sort of siloed into biology, which might be considered sort of a softer science. So how have you found that receptiveness to looking at engineering and making sure that continues from junior cycle all the way up to leaving cert level?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things to probably unpack there. I think some of it comes down to, the subject choice. So, and it's not only be for girls, it could also be for boys as well. The misconception that you need to have studied engineering, for example, for your leaving cert to do engineering at university. So I think that is a misconception. But then, while you don't have to have studied it, choice is a factor as well. So, there's, I think it's only 60 something % of girls' schools that offer the likes of engineering, DCG, construction studies as a subject choice. So that is a big consideration, and that's a barrier when we go out and we're, promoting engineering and doing our outreach and education activities, that the choice isn't there for girls that want to study engineering. The other side of it is, as well as the expectation that, you have to be the maths genius. You have to be an honours A-level maths person to be able to do an engineering program, and that is not the case at all. As I mentioned, like the role models, that's also, a lot of girls maybe don't know someone that's working in engineering. They don't know the types of jobs that you can have. They don't know the benefits that are there. So I think they're kind of the things that generally we see, and it's about kind of showing, giving the answers to those kind of the answers to those questions, or, helping to, show and communicate the different opportunities that are there in engineering. And I suppose there is a stereotype there that it's a male dominated or more male suited career, because it is male dominated. There's more men working in engineering, but that's a male suited career, and that's not the case. I think you still have that misconception of, oh gosh, I'm going to be working on a building site, I'm going to be working with heavy machinery, or I'm going to be doing, sitting doing calculations, or that's not the case. There's so many different career choices that you can avail of. But they're the things, I think, the stereotypical, male suited career, the lack of role models, the lack of information about the jobs, the subject choice that's available at second level. Now, what we've done with our entry requirements for our program as well, we've tried to open up the accessibility to engineering as well. So it's not all about CAO points to get onto our program. We have a portfolio as well. So students get equal weighting for their CAO and their portfolio. So we actually had our portfolio webinar for CAO intake last night, and it's not an engineering portfolio we're looking for. It's not a DCG portfolio. It's really about showing us why you like problem solving. Giving us an example of a project that you've done. It doesn't have to be, as I said, an engineer or even STEM project. How you come up, found a problem, solved the problem. What did you learn? Why you think you'd maybe like to study engineering. And, that gives students a different opportunity as well to access an engineering degree and to gain extra points as well. So
you've kind of leaned into the use of emerging technologies, in particular blended reality. Tell me a little bit about how that came to be such an important part of Ready.
Yeah. That journey probably started back in 2018 when I moved from Cork back to Kerry, and I got a role managing a regional enterprise development fund funded company called ACE, and it was a collaboration with Enterprise Ireland, Kerry County Council, Munster Technological University, and 3 Tier 1 agri-tech companies. And the vision with that company was to set up a hub of excellence for virtual reality, augmented reality training for people working in the agri-tech manufacturing space. So as part of that initiative, we actually set up a virtual reality suite at MTU Kerry campus. So it was one of the first in Ireland, and it's a really, really impressive facility. And that VR suite, we have a suite of mobile VR equipment, and it was all about, how we can improve training and development of staff in manufacturing companies. So that was kind of the starting point. And then when we started looking, externally, what were best in class in terms of engineering education programs, we already had the expertise here with the ACE suite and what we had set up at MTU Kerry campus. And we looked at that and looked internationally. Was anybody using VR, from a research perspective, actually using it operationally, to use the term, in the degree as a key learning, in their degrees as a key learning tool? And they weren't. But yet our industry partners were actually saying to us, we need people to be able to use this technology when they're in manufacturing, where we need people that are skilled in using VR and AR. So when we were designing the program with our industry partners, we said, right, well, we look to see, can we embed VR and AR as a key learning tool from day one? So in order to be able to do that, we said, right, well, everybody needs to have access to a VR headset. This needs to be truly integrated into the curriculum, not just a token. So we have about 60% of our program has got VR technology or AR technology integrated into it. So what that means is every student, when they register on our program, they get an Oculus Quest headset, and they use the headset for their project challenges from day one. They get a very in-depth technology induction as well. So they're not just given the headset and away you go. They're trained how to use it, and they use the headset then for engineering challenges and projects from semester 1. So it started back in 2018, 2019 with the setup of the facilities that we have. And then as we migrated towards the Ready project and the opportunities there and the consultation with our industry partners, it became apparent that it really was something that we needed our students to be able to natively interact with. And I suppose a key point as well, it's a technology's been around for quite a while, but it's emerging now as kind of mainstream in manufacturing. But our students, the skills that they have gained in terms of being able to use the technology, troubleshoot it, apply it, they're skills that they can use for any emerging technology that comes into industry. And it really gives them a really good toolkit, for when they go out into work placement, that they have been able to adapt and adopt to using this type of technology.
You've mentioned the importance of industry partners there a few times. How much are they involved in deciding the content of the program, or providing feedback, or going, look, these are skills that we need that we're not actually getting at the moment. Can you have a look at integrating them into the program?
Hugely involved. They are involved from the beginning in terms of the design. So looking at, okay, what do our student engineers need to learn? And how do we make sure that we are assessing them, that they're demonstrating competence? So it's very much they're there right at the table and figuring it out from the beginning with us. In terms of how they actually then, when we've designed the program and we've developed it, it's going through what we call the validation process. So that's where it goes through the academic rigor to make sure that it meets all the standards that's required. We have industry also on validation panels. So industry that maybe weren't involved with us in the design and development. So other industry folks then would be on the panel, and they would vet it and make sure that it meets the requirements of industry as well. So that's from the validation side. And then after that, we have continuous improvement meetings with our partners as well, where we say, right, well, is there any parts of this that we can improve, any parts of the modules, the programs, and we build that back into kind of feedback loop. That's the management of it. But then in the day-to-day delivery, we have guest lecturers from industry that come in and they would deliver on the program as well. So that's extremely valuable because they get to talk about specific engineering pieces, but they also get to talk about their company and the role that they do. And that's a great insight for student engineers in the program with us. They also, we have our students going out on taster days, it's called. So again, from semester year one on our program, our student engineers get to go on taster days to our industry partners. So they get to walk manufacturing lines, they get to talk to all the different types of engineers, they get to see the types of companies that they're going to be working in year 3 of the program. So they're going to be on a paid work placement in year 3 and 4. So really from semester 1, they're getting that insight into the companies that they can work in, the types of engineering roles that they can work in the company. And it's extremely, extremely valuable from the very, very outset. So from the industry side, they are key. We also have coaching and mentoring programs that we run with our industry partners so that they're set up for success as well when our student engineers are out on work placement. And then there's also that two-way, knowledge exchange. We have industry professionals teaching on the program as well. They've come into academia from industry back in 2020, 2021, but also to make sure that they stay up to date on the developments that's going on in industry. There's that two-way knowledge exchange. We have people coming in from industry sharing experience. And then from the research centre side, I'm part of the IMR Research Centre, and we can offer our industry partners then a lot of experience when it comes to, research projects and going after collaborative research funding as well. So it's an extremely beneficial partnership for industries to be involved with Ready and the IMR Research Centre at MTU.
So looking forward into the future then, are there any particular developments happening either at a national or an international level that you're thinking that would be a great addition to our programme?
Yeah, I suppose there's a number of different things happening at the moment. We were very lucky just before Christmas to be awarded additional funding to scale our model further. So what that means for us is that we're going to be starting this year to add an additional stream from our BEng in mechanical manufacturing engineering to focus on meeting skills needs of the offshore wind energy sector for Ireland. So that's a really, really exciting development for us as well. We have developed an engineering network internationally as well. So we're part of a network with Aalborg University College London, where we are constantly benchmarking what it is that what we're doing and how we can improve. But I suppose for the next 12 to 18 months, our focus now is on, validating that additional stream from the Ready BEng to meet the needs of the offshore wind energy sector in Ireland, and obviously to maintain and grow our student numbers and our female numbers on the programme and continue our outreach activity.
And that was Dr. Fiona Boyle, Director of Ready and Head of Department STEM at MTU's Kerry campus, chatting with Niall Kitson.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for our show this week. As always, a ton more that we just didn't have time to squeeze into the podcast, including Niall.
Yeah, BT is selling off its wholesale and enterprise business to Speed Fibre Network. The EU is taking on Temu and some friends. And lastly, entries have opened for this year's SciFest competitions.
You'll find those stories and more online at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show for you online and, of course, with RT Radio 1 Extra. And please do remember to share a podcast with a friend. If they're into tech, tell them to search for Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify, or now also on YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, have a great weekend.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.